Nobody knew who killed the chauffeur. Not the director, not the writers, not even the author himself. Welcome to The Big Sleep, the 1946 film noir that rewrote itself a year after filming, butchered its breakout star to save another, and became a masterpiece precisely because nobody could figure out what the hell was going on. This is the story of a movie that shouldn't have worked. Buckle up. The $45,000 Hustle. Howard Hawks pulled off one of old Hollywood's slickest cons before he even started filming. Jack Warner handed Hawks $50,000 to buy the rights to Raymond Chandler's novel. Hawks paid Chandler just $5,000 and pocketed the remaining $45 grand. That's 90% profit before a single frame was shot. Warner never questioned it, and Hawks walked away with what would be over $800,000 today. Highway robbery dressed in a three-piece suit. This Guy Brackett. Hawks needed a writer who could match Chandler's hard-boiled prose. He'd just finished reading a tough guy detective novel called No Good from a Corpse and told his secretary to call in this Guy Brackett. Except Lee Brackett wasn't a guy. She was a 28-year-old woman who'd later write The Empire Strikes Back. When Hawks met her, he didn't blink. He paired her with William Faulkner, the future Nobel Prize winner, and told them to write alternating sections of the script. Faulkner greeted her politely, divided up the chapters, then walked into his office and barely spoke to her again, except to say good morning. She held her own against a literary giant and helped create one of the most quotable screenplays in cinema history. Faulkner's work-from-home Gambit. Speaking of Faulkner, he hated being on set. The studio environment didn't agree with him, so he asked Hawks if he could work from home. Hawks said sure, assuming Faulkner meant his Hollywood apartment. Instead, Faulkner packed his bags and flew back to Oxford, Mississippi. Just ghosted the entire production. Hawks was furious, but what could he do? The man was cranking out pages from 1,500 miles away. Sometimes the best writers are the ones who disappear completely. The chauffeur mystery nobody could solve. Here's where it gets weird. Midway through filming, Bogart turned to Hawks and asked him, who killed the chauffeur? Production stopped cold. Nobody knew. Hawks asked the writers. They didn't know. So they sent a telegram to Raymond Chandler himself asking who murdered Owen Taylor, the Sternwood family's driver found dead in a car at the bottom of Lido Pier. Chandler's response years later in a letter to a friend? They sent me a wire asking me, and damn it, I didn't know either. The author of the novel had no idea who killed one of his own characters. The film still doesn't answer it, and somehow, that became part of its twisted genius. Platform shoes and camera tricks. Humphrey Bogart was shorter than both his leading ladies. Film convention demanded the male lead tower over the women, so the studio got creative. They gave Bogart platform shoes and used trick photography throughout the entire shoot. Both Carmen and Vivian make jokes about Marlowe's height in the film. Carmen's first line is literally, "You're not very tall, are you?"
You're not very tall, are you?
And Marlowe quips back, "Well, I try to be."
Well, I tried to be.
It's the movie winking at its own illusion. Every scene where Bogart looks eye to eye with Bacall or Vickers, carefully staged deception. The drunk detective. Bogart's personal life was imploding during production. He was having a blazing affair with 20-year-old Lauren Bacall, while trying to end his toxic marriage to Mayo Methot, with whom he shared a very volatile relationship. The guilt and chaos sent Bogart into a drinking spiral. He started showing up to set drunk, sometimes unable to work for days. The production, scheduled for 42 days, dragged on for 84. Hawks had to shoot around him. Warner Brothers memos described Bogart's mental turmoil regarding his domestic life and his excessive drinking. Yet somehow, through the fog of scotch and heartbreak, Bogart delivered one of his most iconic performances. Method acting before method acting had a name. Word has reached me that you are having fun. Despite the chaos, the cast was apparently having a great time. Too good a time. Jack Warner got wind of it and sent a memo that Lauren Bacall later confirmed. Word has reached me that you are having fun on the set. This must stop. Imagine your boss telling you to stop enjoying your job. But that was Jack Warner, famously controlling. famously humorless. The cast ignored him. The film crackles with that barely contained joy, the sense that everyone's getting away with something. Before we continue, if you're loving these twisted Hollywood secrets, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which noir film I should cover next. Do check our playlists too. Maybe there is something lurking there that you might like. And now, trust me, this story gets even darker. The movie that sat on a shelf for a year. The Big Sleep wrapped in January 1945. It wasn't released until August 1946. Why? Warner Brothers had a backlog of World War II movies they needed to rush out before the war ended and audiences stopped caring. So this masterpiece sat in a vault gathering dust while propaganda films got their moment. But here's the twist. That delay saved the movie. It gave them time to realize they'd screwed up. The 1945 cut was sent to troops in the South Pacific, but American audiences wouldn't see it for another year. And when they finally did, it was a completely different film. Bacall's career-killing disaster. During that delay, Bacall made Confidential Agent with Charles Boyer. It bombed spectacularly. Critics savaged her performance, calling it wooden and lifeless. Her agent, Charles Feldman, panicked. He'd just launched a 20-year-old star, and she was already dying. On November 16, 1945, Feldman wrote Warner a desperate letter. If Bacall gets the same reviews for The Big Sleep, you might lose one of your most important assets. He begged Warner to reshoot scenes, estimating it would cost $25,000 to $50,000, but worth it even at $250,000. He needed to recapture her insolent and provocative spark from To Have and Have Not. Warner agreed. They were about to perform surgery on a finished film. The Girl Who Shattered Bacall. But there was another problem nobody wanted to talk about. Martha Vickers, playing Carmen Sternwood, was electric. Raymond Chandler watched the 1945 cut and later wrote to his publisher, "The girl who played the Nymphy sister was so good she shattered Miss Bacall completely." Chandler claimed the studio gutted Vickers' performance, leaving in just one great scene. Hawks had cast the 21-year-old after seeing a modeling photo and worked with her obsessively. He made her spend an entire day pulling at strands of her hair, sucking on it, creating this unhinged, sexually dangerous character. She was too good. So good she made the star of the movie disappear. The studio's solution? Cut her scenes, pump up Bacall. Career over before it started. The January Reshoot. On January 2nd, 1946, a full year after wrapping, they called everyone back. 6 days of reshoots. Julius Epstein wrote new scenes but got no credit. They added 20 minutes of pure Bogart-Bacall chemistry and cut 20 minutes of plot explanation, including the district attorney's office scene where Marlowe actually explains who killed whom. 2 actors, James Flavin and Thomas Jackson, lost their roles entirely when their scenes were deleted. Peggy Knudsen replaced Pat Clark in a reshot ending. The movie became more confusing but infinitely more watchable. Turns out audiences don't care about logic if you give them heat. The racehorse scene that broke the code. The reshoot gave us one of the filthiest scenes ever to slip past 1940s censors. Bacall and Bogart in a nightclub, ostensibly talking about horse racing. I like to see them work out first, see if they're front runners or come from behind.
See if they're front runners or come from behind.
Bogart fires back. "You've got a touch of class, but I don't know how far you can go."
Got a touch of class, but I don't know how far you can go.
Bacall purrs. "A lot depends on who's in the saddle." They're not talking about horses. Everyone knew it. The censors somehow missed it. Hawks later claimed he wrote this scene because the reshoots were making him miss an actual horse race at Santa Anita, so he brought the racetrack to the script. The bookstore clerk who stole the movie. In the book, there's zero attraction between Marlowe and the bookstore clerk. She gives him information. That's it. But Hawks saw 19-year-old Dorothy Malone and couldn't help himself. He later admitted the scene exists, just because the girl was so damn good-looking. So he made it steamier. She takes off her glasses, lets down her hair, locks the door, and closes the shop for an afternoon.
Looks like we're closed for the rest of the afternoon.
With Bogart that's implied but never shown. Malone was so nervous her hands shook trying to lift the drink glass, so Hawks had the bottom filled with lead so she could handle it. 3.5 minutes of screen time, no name for her character. Yet she made people forget Lauren Bacall existed. That scene launched her career. She'd win an Oscar a decade later for Written on the Wind. Bacall's $350 raise. After the reshoots, Warner Brothers renegotiated Bacall's contract. Her salary jumped from $350 a week to $1,000. That's a 185% raise. The studio knew they'd just saved a star's career and a major investment. Bacall went from potential has-been to essential player in 6 days of filming. Hollywood math. A 20-year-old's entire future decided by how well she could flirt with a guy twice her age. The production code's impossible task. In Chandler's novel, Arthur Geiger is a gay pornographer. Carmen Sternwood appears nude, both in his house and later in Marlowe's bed. Geiger has a homosexual relationship with Lundgren. The film had to erase all of it. The production code forbade any reference to homosexuality or explicit sexuality, so the porn becomes vague Chinese dress photographs. Carmen's nudity becomes her sitting fully dressed in Marlowe's apartment, which he filmed, then cut from the 1945 version, then restored for the 1946 release just to make her seem crazier. The queer characters vanish entirely. What's fascinating is how much filth still made it through. Dead bodies called red points, referencing wartime meat rationing. The code strangled the movie's neck while Hawks smuggled poison past the guards. The wartime details. Nobody notices. Look closely at the cars. They all have B gasoline rationing stickers on the windshields, 8 gallons per week during wartime. There's a female taxi driver, showing women taking traditionally male jobs during the draft. Marlowe drives the same Buick that Bogart used in High Sierra 5 years earlier. These aren't artistic choices, they're budget moves and historical accidents that date the film to a very specific moment, late 1944, when America was still at war and every detail of daily life was shaped by rationing and sacrifice. The Ghost Movie. The original 1945 cut was a myth for 50 years. It had been sent to troops overseas but never released domestically. In the mid-1990s, UCLA found it in their archives and realized they had a completely different version of a classic film. Hugh Hefner and Turner Classic Movies funded its restoration. In 1997, both versions premiered in art house cinemas. Critics remain divided. Some prefer the clearer plot of the 1945 cut. Most agree the 1946 version, despite making less sense, is the better movie. Sometimes confusion is the point. Bogart's ear-tugging tick. Marlowe has this habit throughout the film, tugging his ear when he's thinking. That wasn't in the script. That was pure Bogart, a personal quirk he brought to the character. Hawks loved it and kept it in. It's one of those tiny details that makes Marlowe feel real, lived in. The best performances are built from stolen gestures and unconscious habits. Bogart didn't act Marlowe. He just showed up as himself, scotch-soaked and heartbroken, and let the camera watch. Hawks' philosophy shift. After the Big Sleep's success, Hawks had an epiphany. He later said, "I never figured out what was going on, but I thought that the basic thing had great scenes in it and it was good entertainment. After that got by, I said, I'm never going to worry about being logical again." The movie's incomprehensibility freed him. Plot became secondary to character, to mood, to the crackle of great dialogue. This influenced European directors like Godard and Truffaut years later. The Big Sleep accidentally invented a new way of making movies, one where vibes matter more than explanations. They never explained the murder. In the theatrical cut, Hawks deliberately removed the scene where Marlowe explains all the crimes to the district attorney. 20 minutes of careful plot unraveling, gone. The 1945 version lays it all out. The 1946 version says screw it. You'll never know for certain who killed Owen Taylor or why. The film ends with Bogart and Bacall together, multiple corpses scattered through the plot, and zero resolution to the central mystery. And it works, because The Big Sleep was never about solving the case. It was about watching Bogart navigate a world where everyone's guilty of something, and the only truth that matters is who you trust when the lights go out. The Big Sleep is proof that chaos can create art. A movie nobody understood, rewritten a year later, starring a drunk lead and a nearly ruined co-star, became one of the greatest noirs ever made. Sometimes the best films are the ones that refuse to make sense. So which classic noir should I tear apart next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. And if you want more twisted Hollywood history, hit subscribe. I promise every video is messier than this one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to watch that bookstore scene one more time.